Welcome to the Black Script Storytellers. My name is Kevin Marable, and today our guest is a writer, director, and producer. He has worked on a few of Black Hollywood's biggest films and TV shows, and has a plan of his own to be a force in this industry. Today we have with us Michael Boogie Pinkney. Michael, how are you doing today?
Good, I'm doing great. Thank you for having me.
Yes, thank you for joining, man, and thank you so much for staying diligent, dealing with me, my assistant, and we're finally here, man. We finally made it to
Yes,
an
sir.
interview.
Yes, sir.
um, but yeah, I would like to start, and I start every interview the same way, but I like to ask a very simple question in the beginning, but some might find it difficult to answer. Are you ready?
Yes.
All right, that question is, who is Michael Boogie Pinkney?
A child of God.
Okay. Simple as that. Hey,
Everything else
no,
is weird.
yeah, that's good. That's good. That you know who you are, straight to the point. And
Right.
I like to ask that question to get to know the person before we start with the interview and kind of dive into what it is that you do. Um, but I like that answer, man. Child of God. That's awesome. Um, Now you are a writer, producer, director. But
Yes.
let's start from the beginning. You were an assistant director on films like Inside Man, Precious, even TV shows like Law and Order, Criminal Intent. Before becoming a writer, director,
Right.
how did that all begin for you?
Yeah, I mean, even before the assistant director, I was an intern and then a PA for many years,
Ah,
which
okay.
is, where I learned more about the business. And then I was writing when I was a PA, because I always wanted to be a writer first. Writing is my first love. So I was a
Okay.
PA doing lockups and I was writing scripts when I wasn't supposed to, before I became an AD, so and eventually I knew I wanted to direct after working with so many great directors, so
Right.
I feel like I was writing when I was 12, you know,
Oh wow.
short
Okay.
stories because I used to
Short
tell stories a
stories.
lot. Yeah.
Okay. And at that point in time, you weren't writing them in the format of, actually screenwriting or anything like
No,
that. It was more
it was
so
like a
like
short
paragraph
story, an
form.
essay, a book kind of thing,
Got it.
and just
Okay.
kind of getting some creative ideas out, not without any real format, really.
Yeah. Did you know at that age that this was something that you wanted to get into, or did it just come natural and you just love to tell stories and
Well,
from there you
it came
transitioned?
natural. I didn't know it came natural.
Okay.
I love to tell stories, and I used to tell my brother and my dad stories when we used to go to visit my grandmother every weekend. And I
Hmm.
realized in retrospect that I used to do it to get attention. But after a while, I got really good at telling stories,
Yeah.
And I wanted to play basketball, But oddly enough, I played high school basketball. I got a scholarship to play college basketball, even though I'm not that tall. But in college is where I got into filmmaking because I went to a film school, but I didn't know the school was a film school because I wasn't into film. So just
Ah,
the
okay.
universe made it happen that way for me.
Yeah, the universe was nudging you in the on the path that you needed to be on, man.
Yes, yes,
Little
and
did you know.
even even that point when I was in college, I worked at the library, and
Hmm.
the woman that ran the library, I'm from Brooklyn, born and raised, and I was going upstate New York, and she was like, "Hey, there's this director in Brooklyn that's having a workshop. You should go and check it out." I'm like, "Okay." She said, "Yeah, his name is Spike Lee." I'm like, "Okay, I'll go and check out the workshop." I went to
Wow.
that workshop. It was a directing workshop in LIU University in Brooklyn. That's when I was in college. I was a sophomore, and I walked up to the people at the event, and I was like, "How can I be an intern?" That was the beginning of the journey, but I had no idea. I wasn't thinking about directing at all.
Right.
Before
Right.
that point.
Yeah. Now you've had a lengthy career in as it pertains to writing and directing. As far as I could look, as far as I could see, it dates back to 2004. I wonder if you had some projects prior to that, but according to your IMDb, I think the first project that is listed is 2004.
Yeah, I think
Um,
so. That's when I was doing. I did a string of short films. I maybe
okay.
did 10 of them.
Yes. Yeah.
But it was just me honing my craft and just
Right.
shoot. I learned how to shoot. I learned how to edit, and I just learned how to be a filmmaker in that moment. You know,
Right.
in
And
the in
everything
those
was kind
90s.
of like experience as you go.
Yes, and learn as you go, pretty much.
Yeah.
But
Yeah.
back then, it was you. There was no Google learning about. You just had to
Right.
do it. So that's
Right.
what I did. And oddly enough, it was on a Spike Film when I was an intern, and the camera operator name is Phil Odeker. He was an OG camera guy, and I used
Uh-huh.
to watch the camera truck for lunch, as interns do. And he came from lunch and he asked me, he said, "Hey kid, so what do you want to do?" He said, "Oh, I want to be a director." And then he told me, he was like, "Then go and direct." And
Mm.
that was the moment. I bumped into
Really?
him 5 years ago on the subway. And he's like, "Boogie,
Really?
oh, it's so great to see you. I'm so proud of you." I'm like, "Do you understand how you spoke life into me to say go and direct?" Because it was that simple.
Mm.
Go and direct. And I was like, so that changed, I think. Because from that point on, I would write and shoot and cast extras and shoot a short, and I was just directing and not thinking about it had to be a Hollywood movie to direct from that moment
Yeah.
on. So
Yeah. Can I ask, when you were getting your start in doing your own independent projects, what camera did you start with?
it was a mini DV camera. I don't know if you
Okay.
remember mini DV
Yes,
cameras.
I
The
do.
little tiny cassette. Yeah, that was
Yeah.
it. It was a Canon. It was a Sony.
Wow.
Panasonic. I think it was Panasonic. Yeah,
Panasonic. Wow. Yeah,
yeah.
that's yeah, man. That's back, what is that, late 90s, early 2000s?
Yeah, late 90s, early 2000. That's when Final Cut Pro, and it was like, that's when, I feel like the means of production kind of came into the hands of regular people.
Wow. So everything that you were
Yeah.
shooting at that point was handheld, running gun, standard
It's like,
mic.
yeah,
Well,
you
yeah.
know, shooting no locate, no agreements, just shooting anywhere you want to shoot. Shot in the subway, and that's just, but it kind of taught me. But I also was
Right.
a ADPA at that time, so I understood just the
Right.
nuances of making a movie. You know what I'm saying? And what it takes
Okay.
and how to think. You know.
Okay.
I
Now,
think that
now,
helped a
as
lot.
it pertains to writing a film or writing a, let's just start at the short film stage. When you were writing the short films, um, how did you know from beginning to end? How did you know you had a finished script that you could actually take and to go into production?
I feel like for me, I've always adopted, and I don't know where I adopted process over perfection from. And there was a
Hmm.
mantra that I've always had where, is you get better. Because you could be in your head and you can, writing is about rewriting. You can rewrite forever.
Right.
But I was a writer who wanted to direct. So I wasn't a writer
Hmm.
that would write it like, oh, I wrote it. It's like, no, I'm instantly thinking about what I got to do to shoot it. So, and so for me it was, is it I can add value to it when I direct it. It's just what's
Right.
on the page. Now it needs to be brought to life. So I was lucky enough that I didn't really overthink it.
Hmm.
Of course you look at it like, fuck, I wish I would have did this differently. Oh, that happens.
Yeah.
But
Yeah.
I'm glad that I gave myself enough grace to finish it and be like, okay, it's done. I need to move on, and I don't want it to take over my life. Because I know a
Hmm.
lot of great writers that you
They
know
hold on to it.
they hold on to it because it's not perfect, and it's like life will pass you by. And as we see with Tubi,
Yeah.
people are writing and directing stuff that ain't perfect, and it's like
Right.
it's process of a perfection. It's kind of like you want people to see the work. To me, you want to see the work, and you want to see
Right.
growth. And
Yeah.
you want to give opportunities to DPs and actors, and it's like it's not about you. And I think sometimes as writers, we think it's about us. We are a vessel to tell a story, and then how do we tell our story visually? That's just my opinion.
Right.
You know.
Right. And I like I like that you put it in that perspective because everybody starts somewhere, right? Not everybody starts as a professional, everything polished, have all the top actors, and your script
Right.
is perfect from beginning to end. And what Tubi is teaching us and has taught us is that you can learn as you go. You can build a catalog and show your growth, and you can learn from your mistakes, and you can also put yourself on the map in the process. and make some money for yourself, so that way your projects over time get bigger and better.
And you get
So,
bigger
so
and better, you
yeah,
know.
yeah, they do for
Yeah,
sure.
you can't get, to me, you can't get better as a director if you aren't directing.
Right,
You can't get
right.
better as a writer if you're not writing,
Hmm.
you know.
Hmm.
But
Definitely. Now,
yeah.
on top of you doing the AD, and things like that behind the scenes, early on, you also worked with Issa Rae Productions and also co-produced the docu series for BET. Um, how did those opportunities come into play? How did you manage to be in the right place at the right time for all of these instances?
I think in terms of the, I think Black Actress was the Issa Rae thing, and I met, Andrea Lewis, and from me doing projects, and sometimes I've developed to an independent guy in Brooklyn.
Hmm.
I wasn't Spike, but I was moving and shaking as much as I could, and people
Spike
could touch
like.
me. Right, people could touch me. Be
Right.
like, I need a director, and I was a director that went into producing because I knew the logistics. I could do a schedule,
Hmm.
I could do a budget, I know all the pieces. So that was valuable when somebody
Hmm.
wanted a director that really needed somebody to help manage production too.
Right.
So, so I found the sweet spot from moving from ADing to directing and producing,
Hmm.
because everybody needs a valuable producer, logistics person, and guidance. Everybody that, I was blessed to come in with a lot of OGs in the business, but I learned a lot. So I found myself being, helping to not mentor per se, but definitely being the elder statesman, or, helping to guide a production, because I know where
Right.
the mistakes can happen and where it can't. So I brought that too as a director, which I
Mm.
think added value to me.
Yeah, absolutely. Any knowledge, anything that you can point out in the process of a production, and also bring more information to the table, keep things organized, and make sure you know all the actors are on set, the shots are done, the way they're supposed to be done, and you see it through, from beginning to end.
Yeah,
That is
and this
that
shit
is
is hard.
valuable. Yeah, I know it's hard.
And it looks easier than it is. That's the thing that happens with people sometimes, that if they haven't had the exposure, it looks easier
Right,
than it is until they get in it. It's like, oh my God, the actors don't just show up. You got to
right.
tell them to come here. Just
Yeah.
simple as that.
You got to
So
tell them to come. You got to keep them in line. Make sure they're ready to go. Make sure they're ready. They know their lines. All of
right,
that. You got to stay on top
right,
of everything. So yeah, you handle the day to day logistics of all of that. Make sure
right.
things get accomplished.
Yeah, it's not just
Um,
about action and cut.
right, right. Now, correct me if I'm wrong. But your feature film debut, "You're Nobody Till Somebody Kills You,"
Hmm.
which starred James McDaniel, Michael K. Williams, Dougie Fresh, and so many more. But you had an estimated budget of $1 million. Um,
Something like that. I think.
okay,
I don't
well,
know, because
close, somewhere within that range.
right,
And you were also distributed by Lionsgate for that film.
right.
How did you manage to make that happen, especially as your first feature film?
Well, I actually wrote the script right
That's
before we
crazy.
shot Inside Man. So I was
Wow.
writing. We did Inside Man, and a detective, rest in peace. Detective Neil was the technical advisor on Inside
Hmm.
Man. He was in charge of training Denzel, because he was a homicide detective, black guy. And I gave him the script. I was like, "Hey, Detective Neil, can you read this? Let me know, how you like it. Detective jargon, does it make sense?" And he read it. And he
Hmm.
said, "I love it. I want to help you make it." And he
Mm.
came on board as a producer. He said, "We should ask Spike if he would executive produce it. That can help us get more money." And then we
Wow.
raised more money. We
Wow.
shot the film. We shot it on film, 16 millimeter film, because digital was taken off, and Kodak said, "Hey, we'll give you free film as long as you shoot it in film."
Oh,
But what
wow.
what the thing is with that, even if you're getting free film, you got to process and develop.
Right.
I didn't know. I'm just directing and writing. So it was a challenge because we didn't have a lot of money. And it was because of the world that I came from, the film was full union.
Mm,
Because everybody that we knew worked with union, IATSE,
right.
DGA,
Right.
so Richard Teamsters. So it was expensive. So it's like we ran. It was tough because it wasn't a lot. $1 million in New York for a union is not a lot of money.
Mm,
So it was. Needless to say, that's the reason why I became a producer,
wow.
because you have to be in control on some level as a director of the means of production, because it's going to affect you as a director. What you
Right.
can shoot, how you can shoot, what you can get. So and it was distributed through I think it was Lionsgate, but it was I forgot the subsidiary company.
Got it. Okay. So yeah,
But
like, Lionsgate was the parent, but there was a
right,
subsidiary
and
that,
this whole distribution game is like the record industry.
right.
They're all
Yeah.
trying to find a way to get you. So that's
Yeah.
ultimately what it is. Lionsgate
Uh-huh.
has Grindstone, has a company that can rob you.
Right.
So you
Right.
can't say Lionsgate robbed me.
Ah.
But
Mm,
so but that's just what it is. They say everybody in their first deal, they're gonna get effed.
right.
So that was my first deal, and from that point on,
You
I became a
learn.
shark.
Yeah. Yeah.
So I get it. I ate it.
Right. There's a shell company inside of the company, and they were
you
just
know,
siphoning funds.
that's it. And
And
you're never gonna know the numbers. They're gonna cook the books. They say you
wow.
can audit them, but who's gonna audit the company? You don't got enough money.
Right. It's too
So
expensive, especially
right,
for the small guy coming in.
right. So and they
Um,
know it. So
that's
that's what it is. I
crazy.
didn't make any money off the movie at
Wow.
all.
Wow. But it gave you bragging rights. It gave you
Yes,
some street cred, so to
right,
speak, and you were able
right,
to begin to make more connections and relationships within the business based
right,
off of that film.
right. And you have to
So,
do it. You have to
yeah.
sacrifice.
Yeah.
You know.
So there was value in it, even though you might
Yes.
not have seen any money.
Right.
That kind of helped launch your career
Right.
as to where
True.
you are
Very
today,
true.
and you learned a very valuable lesson.
Yes. Yes, I did. And I got
Yeah.
better. I got better as a result.
Right. Right. Okay. Now you've since gone on to have over 26 projects to your name,
I
to
do.
include He Who Findeth, Terra Lake Drive, Killer Beat, Twisted Hearts, and your most recent Dreamhaus. I'm only naming a few, but you have 26 of them that are
Really?
currently out and produced.
Really?
Before we get to Dreamhaus, though, because I do want to talk about Dreamhaus for a second, can you touch base on the other projects? He Who Findeth, Terror Lake Drive, Killer Beat, Twisted Hearts. Those are your most current projects back to back since about 2022, 2023 to now.
Yeah, but it was interesting. It was kind of like I did this other film called Trafficked also, but that was the first film
Right.
that I
Okay.
did since You're Nobody. I had a 10-year lag.
Wow.
10
What? Okay.
years.
So, okay, do you mind me asking what happened within that 10-year window? Why did it take 10 years?
Get money, financing. I was doing a
Right.
bunch of educational films of nonprofits, sizzles, pilot presentations. I shot a pilot, so it was a lot. It wasn't. It was tough to get a feature off the ground in New York because it's expensive, and then the
Got it.
money dried up. Investors. So and
Mm,
like Traffic, I funded myself. And I just got into a sweet spot after a while. But I did Traffic, and He Who Finds was in Atlanta. A couple of producers I worked with on the TV series hired me for that. An old friend of mine, Jerry Lamoth, who I've known for 20 years, he was a showrunner on Terror Lake Drive.
wow.
I he wanted me to AD season 2, and I was like, oh, I haven't AD'd in years. He was like, oh, okay. Because they were looking for somebody, need somebody. And they was like, oh, yeah, we're trying to do a schedule because they got to finish the budget. I'm like, okay, that's my man. Send me the episodes. I'll do the
Mm,
schedule for the season. And I did the
right.
shooting schedule. I was like, I'm going to just do the shooting schedule because that's my man. And I went down and hung out. He was like, if we get another season, I want you to direct. They got another season. He called me and said, hey, and then we started the writers room. And I'm like, well, I'm a writer, right? He was like, you're a writer? So I joined the writers' room and directed an episode. And
Wow.
Killer Beat, I pitch a lot. I pitch a lot of TV,
Uh-huh.
and I pitched to Mar Vista. And Mar Vista had a slate of Tubi originals that they would do. And I pitched them Killer Beat, but I actually pitched them, oddly enough, this is the first time anybody, I mean, I told other people about it, but originally I pitched them, You're Nobody Till Somebody Kills You Part 2. I pitched them the
Okay.
sequel.
Yeah.
And they said, "Oh, we love the world, but we don't want a sequel. We don't want a sequel, and we would love something in that world, and but we would love you to make the rapper a female rapper, and we don't do slasher films. So can you make it a stalker, and can you repitch it?" And I said, "Okay, I'll go back and I'll rework the pitch." Came back and pitched them Killer Beat. They
Hmm.
greenlit it. They hired me to write it. I wrote the script, and then we went into production maybe 8 months later. It was quick.
Wow.
It was really quick, you know.
Yeah. So do you already have a list of companies or agencies that you go and pitch to, or how did you get in front of Mar Vista or some representatives of that company?
Well, I worked for this production company in 2019 to 2021, Jax Media.
Hmm. Hmm.
Jax Media, Russian Doll, Broad City. They do a
Okay.
bunch of films,
Yeah.
and I worked at Jax Media for 2 years, and one of the execs was working for another company that was owned because Jax was half owned by Imagine Entertainment, and Imagine also owned another production company. And this exec at that company actually moved over to Mar Vista, and she emailed everybody, "Hey, I'm gonna be at Mar Vista. Great working with everybody." And of course, I'm like, "Hey, so let me know if
Yeah.
Mar Vista's taking pictures." She was like, "Hey,
Yeah.
Boogie, yeah, let's set up a call." So I'm always paying attention to who's moving where because nobody's
Got it.
never the same place too long, and I'm always doing what I call admin work. And admin work is me connecting with people that I've worked with and seeing what's going on and who's this manager, who's saying versus just writing a script and not knowing, not being really well versed into the business workings because then
Hmm.
I can't really move and shake and get things made. So I'm constantly pitching and saying who can I pitch to, connecting with a manager and just kind of like trying to package and talking to actors like so I'm always willing and dealing.
Yeah. No, that's good. That's a good thing to do. Not everybody does that. A lot of times they'll just either stick to one connection or one relationship that they have, and that's it, and they don't follow up with other folks.
Right,
And even if certain people that they've come in contact with in the past, and they might have said not right now or this is a no for me,
right,
then you tend to just walk away from that person
right,
without circling back and saying, "Hey, I know the last project wasn't good for you, but how about this one?" Or
right. And it's
tell me what it
timing.
is that you're looking for.
Yeah, so
Yeah.
we have so I've understood that I'm not just a writer or director. I'm a producer, which is more of a business side of it. So I
Right.
look at it that way. Like me even
Right.
pitching, I didn't I stopped writing spec scripts for a little while because I'm like, okay, I'm not just writing, and now I got to find somewhere for it to go.
Hmm.
I want to kind of do a pitch deck, develop a project, and say, hey, I'm trying to do this, and if they're interested, then I'll write it.
Right.
Because
Yeah.
I got 5 scripts written and it's just sitting there because the timing in the right place isn't there anymore.
Right. Yeah. So
So
so what do you do when you have said five scripts and nobody seems to they don't catch? Do you just sit on them until the right, like you said, the right place, right time, right person, or do you just kind of tuck them away and say, I get back to those. Let me work on what's hot right now, or um, what's your process?
it depends because Dreamhouse was something that I was like, I'm gonna shoot it. I'm gonna shoot it, but I have to make it shootable.
Right,
So I have
right.
to rework it, so I can shoot it in 4 days.
Mm,
Everybody can't shoot it in 4 days. So I had to
yeah.
because
So
most of the other scripts I have, I can't. I need 15 days, and I need a
right,
lot. So I kind of reverse engineered the film. I'm like, okay, this is how much money I can spend right now, and I'll be homeless. And so, what do I need to write, cast wise, location wise,
right.
logistically? How can I make a box? This is the amount of money, and it needs to fit in that box. I get it.
Right.
I want to do some fantastical thing. It has to fit in this box, or else I'm not going to make this movie, and I'll be waiting.
Hmm.
Of trying to pitch and get investors, and they'll pull you along for 6 months, and we changed our mind.
Wow.
I've gone through a bunch of it, so I've gotten to the space where it's like, if I want to shoot something, I'm going to shoot it. I just got to figure out how to do it, because I'm also an editor, so I cut. I don't like editing, but I'll cut something. At least I can do a rough assembly and pass it on, so I can
Right.
save a little bit of money in
Right.
editing.
Yeah.
So yeah, I'm not waiting. I hate waiting. I'm
Wow.
impatient.
So Dreamhouse was only shot in 4 days. That's crazy. Okay.
Yeah,
And,
like
and
20.
it's
Yeah,
a feature length
but
film. It's on Tubi now.
yes, on
For
Tubi now.
Yeah, for those watching and listening, it's on Tubi now. If you haven't checked it out, go check out Dreamhouse on
Yeah.
Tubi, along with Boogie's other projects. Um, but let's talk about Dreamhouse for a minute. That's your most recent project, and it's a thriller. To me, it was pretty interesting. But without giving away the film, can you tell us a little bit about what the film is about?
It's about a woman with multiple personality disorder,
Hmm.
and just her trying to figure out what she wants in life. She's engaged. She should be happy. She shouldn't be happy, and just the overall idea of what do we want, and if what we
Yeah.
want fits into society's norms. How does trauma affect us and never leave, and affect our future just like it affected our past. you
Right.
know um and I wrote the film. I knew I wanted to have one person play multiple characters. I knew that's the genesis of where I started,
Okay.
because I always think that's really interesting. I
Yeah.
love Mommy
Yeah.
Dearest. I love those films where that's why I have the ode to Mommy Dearest with the wire hangers. I
Right.
just love, I always love those kind of movies. So, that's why I wanted to do something that kind of, and I felt like a lot of times, black actors aren't giving something a little different, so I was trying to do
Right.
something a little different so it could feel a little soap opera-ish sometimes. It's a little fantastical. It's a little, it was, to me, I tried to make it was a little harder to put in a box,
Hmm.
and say
Hmm.
it's this or that, but, and it was fun. It was fun. It was almost an experiment,
Yeah.
really, to
Yeah.
see if I could do it in 4 days. I didn't know.
He
I
pulled it
didn't know.
off.
I had to,
Yeah. You pulled
it's,
it
it,
off. The actors knew their parts.
they
They
had to,
they yeah,
because
they
I moved
locked it
really
down.
fast.
They locked it down and knocked it out, man. The lead actress, her name is escaping me right now, but
Destiny Washington.
Destiny Washington. She did her thing, man.
Yeah.
When she switched over to Eleanor, that's all I got to say. Yeah, man.
And it's
She
part of a trilogy too. I
Okay.
started writing part two.
Wow.
And,
Okay, so
and,
there's
and
gonna be a
yes,
series.
the next
Wow.
one is called Dreamhouse 2 Raven's Revenge. The one that she poisoned now is from her perspective, her story.
Oh
You know,
wow.
yeah.
That's gonna be crazy. Yeah.
And during the writer's strike, I kind of did some of this, and I wrote a book, Dreamhouse the book.
Adds on to the IP.
That
Yeah, it
published.
adds on to the IP of the film. Oh, it's already
Yes,
out.
but I wrote the film first, and I was like, man, I reverse engineered. I was like, man, we've been cool if this was based on a book. And I'm like, I wrote this script. Wow, I could write a book. I can
Yeah.
convert it, so I converted it.
Wow.
You
And
know,
you had enough pages, or did you have to add more? You had to add more
I,
detail when you
I had
converted
to,
it
I had
from.
to, mm, I had to add more detail. And that's the thing about writing a book is everything
Right.
is exposition and detail. So
Yeah.
you're describing the colors of the shirt and all this stuff, so you can add into the story and just add in the color. So, and that was the first time, that was interesting for me. And it was during the writer's strike. I was like, okay, so what's happening? So
Yeah.
I wrote that, you
Yeah.
know.
Let me ask about, if you don't mind, let me ask about the
Mhm.
location of that you shot Dreamhouse in. Wherever that location is, man, that looked like it was pretty exquisite. I don't know if it's part of a museum or it's an actual house or like.
It's a place where they do photos. And
Okay.
writing and developing the story because originally she was gonna be in a strip club. Originally, I was looking at
Okay.
locations. I found this place, and I'm like, oh my god, this location is amazing. It
Yeah.
can't be a strip club. It has to be this place, and it got to be. Now I'm changing it to a men's gentlemen's club. So I like to inform what I'm writing to the location. Sometimes people write something it's like, oh, I gotta find this, and it's like you. A lot of times you're gonna shoot yourself in the foot if you don't got access to X, Y, and Z, but it's
Right.
in the script, and you need a helicopter. And it's like, okay, we don't got money for a helicopter. Then where are you? So
Yeah.
once I saw that location, I'm like, okay, the story's changing, and I changed the
Hmm.
script because
Hmm.
that location was amazing.
Yeah.
It's called the Dallas Dreamhouse.
That okay.
And it's
Yeah.
a place they do photo shoots. But I was like, I'm shooting this movie here, and I even
Right.
changed the name of the movie. The
I,
original
s-
name of the movie
I was
was
getting ready to say.
Private Dancer. It was called
Oh,
Private Dancer. That's where the stripper is. She was, so I
wow.
reworked it all to fit that.
Yeah.
You
And,
know.
and to be honest with you, I know you have one book. I don't know if you're going to continue on with the books or, but
Yeah, I
if
am.
you're doing, okay, I was going to say if you're doing a series, one of them could be Dreamhouse part whatever, Private Dancer.
True. True.
You could still incorporate it somehow, or maybe it be a chapter or something. Who knows? But
Yeah.
yeah, that's pretty dope, man. And when I saw it, I was like, man, that it takes a lot to get a location like that. So I was like, man,
Right. Right.
he
You
must
just
have,
stumble upon it because there's
right,
not a lot of great locations, and and places are expensive. If you're
yeah,
doing an indie, it costs money, and we didn't
right,
have any money.
right. You were able to still fit it within the box of that budget that you were looking
Right.
to film the
Because
project
it's
with.
like, okay, we got one day. We got to
Mhm.
shoot everything in this mamma jamma, and it ain't even a full day because we can't. We only get afford 8 hours.
So you shot all of those scenes in one day. Wow.
And
Yeah.
it goes back to me being a AD. I've been
Hmm.
scheduling movies and first AD, second AD, I AD for Spike. He shoots like a maniac.
Yeah.
So it's in my DNA to really, not necessarily shoot fast, but be so meticulous and planned that there's no room for error.
Right.
Like there's enough time in the day to shoot a lot of stuff if you plan it right, if you execute it properly,
Right.
if you know what you need versus shooting, so much coverage that you're not going to use 80% of what you shot. You know what I'm saying? I'm like, I got to be very intentional. So I was
Yeah.
very intentional,
Yeah.
and I don't
That's
play. I'm like, I'm like
yeah.
a drill
That
sergeant.
that goes to your strengths as far as being a director slash producer,
Right,
because
right,
then you can wear both hats, and when you have the shot and it's time to move on,
right,
opposed to only knowing a certain portion of it and then you needing somebody else to tell you, hey, I
right,
think we got the shot.
right,
Let's
right.
keep it moving. Um, Now in writing, and you might have mentioned this, but if you could, how did you come up with the concept to this film? Like, where did this all dawn on you?
I actually I developed a process for this film
Uh,
specifically
okay,
because I'm like, okay, I got 4 days,
yeah,
period. That's all the money I got. So basically, there's 4 worlds because I know if I'm at one location for the whole day, I can shoot a lot. So I'm
yeah,
saying there's 4 worlds. There was a world with her and her fiance. There was a world with her and the therapist. There was a world
mhm,
in the dream house, and there was the flashback world. And
right,
I started the story that way. And I made sure that she was in each world and connected those worlds. So that's the first thing I did. I'm like, okay, there's 4 worlds, and then I started building out those worlds, you know,
mm,
um, where I know I can shoot I can shoot 20 pages a day if I'm not moving, you
wow,
know.
yeah,
But I know it's crazy.
right, right. Now, let's see. With as many projects that you've either created or been a part of, you have the experience needed to know what's necessary to make a film of that magnitude, and make it work. As a writer and director, how do you know that you have a project any project that is ready for production? And the reason why I'm asking this question, I know I kind of had a similar question earlier. The reason why I'm asking this question is for writers and filmmakers, directors who want to create let's just say this is their first project that they're working on. When do they know, when is a good time to know that you have something that is ready for production?
I mean, for me, because I was an AD for a lot of years, sometimes they're doing revisions while I'm
Hmm.
doing the schedule. So
Hmm.
I learned quickly that I don't, if I'm shooting next month, the script don't have to be totally, the structure and everything has to be there. I can still add and just kind of polish it and do things to it, to make it better. But if I
Right.
need to start the clock, you got to start the clock, because sometimes people need pressure, and it's like, if I know, I give myself deadlines. If I know, okay, I want to shoot this by this date, whether the script isn't done, I'm giving that deadline, and I'm
Right.
going to work towards that deadline, whether finding location, because everything, to me, everything has to happen simultaneously. The script, the locate, the actors aren't available. It's like, you can't wait. You can't wait for the script to be or it's ready. It's like, soon as you got a rough draft, it's ready
It's go
to
time.
me, because
Yeah.
you're gonna have revisions. You're gonna. I worked on films, TV shows where we doing a scene, and the next scene they revising.
Right.
They revising the pages, and we're
Yeah.
about to shoot the scene.
Right.
So it's like, I understand that, it's process of perfection. It's not perfect, and you have to live in the process. It just and get away from protection. Perfection is an illusion.
Hmm.
Is an illusion. And sometimes writers, we have a habit of, we got to make it. And the audience, as we see, is very forgiving. They're very forgiving. So we have to be forgiving in ourselves. So I feel like if you got a rough draft, and you can kind of get some notes, and you can, but don't stop the process, because it's gonna take a month or 2 months to mount the project anyway.
Yeah.
So now
Hmm.
you got 2 months, but I feel like you it's ready when you have something that you okay sharing with somebody. It's like, okay, is that a point where, okay, I can let somebody read it
You
and
think
give me
you
their
have,
input.
yeah, you think you have
Yeah.
something. Hmm.
Yeah, then okay, it's ready, because you got to start this process even while you getting notes and revising it, to get people interested. Even you send the
Right.
actor a rough draft, they know if they want to do it or not.
Right.
But you need to roll them in, and you need, now you have a face to a character. Now you might revise it a little differently, because
Hmm.
Morgan Freeman is playing it versus Sam Jackson. So it's kind of like, and I find that to be the case too. Depending on who's going to be in the role, you might have to
Yeah.
adjust things. So why wait? So I think, it's just important, like I said, to maybe a rough draft that you feel good about. You
Right.
know,
Right. And then
then it's
start from
ready to
there. Yeah.
start scaling, start
Yeah.
thinking about it. Not say you're gonna shoot next week, but start thinking about, okay, so what will it take?
Hmm.
Do I have this location? Should I find a producer? Do I know some actors that, and start thinking that way? Because then I think, for me, I was able to write faster once some of the other pieces were in place that helped me creatively. You
Right.
know, yeah.
Yeah. Okay. Now I have two questions for you about budget, and I'm not trying to pocket watch whatsoever. So answer answer how you wish. But I feel like it's important, especially for people who are trying to produce their own projects, what it takes, not necessarily just
Right.
on the technical side, but even on the
Mm-hmm.
financial side, what it takes to create a project to the level that you're creating
Yeah.
your films.
People used to ask me. So go ahead.
I was
Was that
just
the
gonna
question?
I was just gonna ask you, like, what's a typical budget to create a film like Dreamhouse or Killer Beat? And then secondly, my second question is, do these films bring a significant return of investment?
Okay. The first part. So totally different. Tubi originals typically are in the
Uh-huh.
700, from 700,000 range.
Okay.
14
Okay.
days, you know, not union, but SAG, but not union.
Hmm.
14 days, still lean and mean, but it's a crew. You got a crew,
Right.
through a production company. So they making it for 700 grand, but now the production company got a production fee, and they're taking whatever they're taking. So really, it might not be 700,000. You
Right.
know, Dreamhaus coming out of my pocket. I feel like independent films. Sometimes I used to do budgets. And I'm like, okay, so I'm gonna round it up 5 grand a day. It's gonna be at least 5 grand a day
Yeah.
for gear, crew, food, locate. If I want people like, hey, how much how much is this gonna cost? I can it could be 7,000 or 7 million. It's
Yeah.
so, you know what I'm saying? It's so, if Dreamhouse, if I'm cutting it, if all the gear is mine, if I'm, it's like if I'm not getting paid as a director, it's like all of these variables. But I think, I mean, I tell people, like I said, 5 grand a day,
Hmm.
because you know to pay out, and then that's also post. It might be five
Right.
grand a day, but 1,000 a day of that is for post. Typically, post, in my estimates, is 10% of the budget. The budget's 100 grand. It doesn't cost
Right.
10 grand for post.
Right.
So, and I give kind of round numbers, because everything. Then you got to get into the details, because you don't really know if a
Hmm.
DP got his own gear. So then you have to do a hard budget. It's like, okay,
Right.
do I know a DP that I can pay him for him and his gear, his camera, and his lights? Okay, boom.
Hmm.
You know what I'm saying, and just kind of, relationships. And so it depends, but it's kind of like, you find a producer, if you're not a producer, that has relationships, that can make a couple calls and people will come out for them for a
Right.
little bit of money.
Right.
So it's all about relationships. I think for me, what's helped me a lot is because I had a lot of relationships over time.
Hmm.
And people, and I've worked on other people's stuff. Like, they need help, I'm like, I'll come show up AD, not really AD, and just make sure there's no foolishness happening, and
Right.
help them finish their project. So I found myself having to, helping people over the time, and then I don't think about it and tell them, like, and they're like, whatever, but I don't pay me. I was just coming to help,
Yeah.
and
You're
it's
just stepping
because you're
into other
paying into
roles.
somebody. But some people don't want to pay into nobody, but they want everybody to pay into them.
Right.
So that's the
Right.
tough part. So you have to give, and I've been blessed to be able to impart knowledge. Send me your script. I'll do. What I'm saying, whatever I can do to help.
Hmm.
And pay forward, and it's helped me.
Yeah.
I don't know if that
Okay.
answered your question.
No, it does. It does.
Okay.
And like I said, I'm not trying to pocket watch.
No,
Um, but I, a lot of times I do ask other directors and other people on the production side of things what it takes to create a project, and it's interesting to get the different variations of the answer.
yeah,
But
yeah,
I feel like you wrapped it up, properly,
yeah,
and you gave the right example, especially from a sense of the independent side
right,
versus when Tubi or whoever gives you a proper budget, and you have to work within the realm of that budget.
right,
um
right.
yeah, so I feel like you answered the question.
Okay, all right, good.
I'm not trying to interrogate you, man. All right, so I have another. This is
Oh, I
another.
didn't. Did I answer the second part? I forgot the second part.
Oh, what? Okay, so do these films bring a significant return on investment?
I mean, well, Killer Beat, I was hired to write and direct.
Okay. Okay.
Paid out. They ain't no back end. They own it.
Flat fee.
You know, I have to sign it over I don't even own the rights to the movie, because they
Okay.
paying me. I'm kind of a work for hire. That's how they do
Got it.
contracts. But
Okay.
Dreamhouse, I get back in, I see the numbers, I see how much money it makes. I can see the impressions. So that's the
Mhm.
part that I wanted. I wanted to know a little bit more of the back end
Yes.
distribution part, like how, even if I don't make a ton of money, it's like, okay, it's coming to me and it could be forever, and I
Right.
still own it. It's that kind of thing. So it depends on what you want. And it's all about catalog, as people are saying, and just kind of having some work that you still kind of own, and I can put it somewhere else if I want to, if I want to license it. So,
Hmm.
but you
Okay.
have to pick your poison. You want the money now, or you want
Right.
to, you know,
Yeah, you have to choose what is more valuable to you at the time, and in
right,
some cases you may not have a choice, and then this is
right,
what they present to you, like with Killer Beat. That's what they presented
right,
to you with Dreamhouse. Even though you will be receiving a return, it was probably the value probably comes more from the data that you're going to
right,
receive, and
right,
then you'll know how to move, forward from there once you receive the data back, and you can kind of
Right.
see, okay, these are the kind of numbers I'm dealing with. This is how many
Right.
people are watching.
Yeah.
It's how much watch time I've received on this project. This is my
Yeah.
demographic, so on and
Yeah.
so forth. And then from there, you can start to tailor your films based upon where your strongest numbers are, and where you had the most viewership, and all of
Yeah.
that.
Because to
Yeah.
me, that's where
So
the industry is going anyway.
right,
You know,
it's all
so
data driven
we
at
got
the
to
end
know
of the
that
day.
part too.
Yeah, and a lot of
Yeah.
times, a lot of these companies don't like to share the data, and
Right.
where the numbers can be higher than what they tell you,
Right.
and they just pay you out a flat fee. Meanwhile,
Right.
you're doing killer numbers like Squid Game, and
Right.
Netflix. Netflix was trying to hog all that money.
Right. And they know how to do it now. So
Yeah,
you
yeah.
know, but yeah.
So I did have another interesting question for you, and this one came from a viral post that I made
Okay.
about 50 Cent. He was on $1 million worth of game recently,
Mm.
and he said, "Don't shoot a film, shoot a series."
I
What
saw
are
that
your
too.
thoughts on that statement, and do you agree or disagree, being that this is somewhat your wheelhouse?
I feel like I would love. I pitch a lot of TV series. I write
Hmm.
pilots. I do decks with story bibles, and I do all the accoutrement.
Right.
To pitch that stuff, but they're hard to get picked up because they're expensive. There's
Yeah.
6 episodes, 8 episodes, so he got 5 shows. So I get that he can say it
Hmm.
because he has the bankroll of money backing them to do a series. But it is smart because even if you did a series for Tubi, once that episode one happens, if somebody not watching it, still starts episode two. So you can your
Right.
numbers it could work for your numbers. So if you can, yeah, I think it's great because it can continue forever.
Hmm.
If you got the
Hmm.
money to do it, but then if you're doing 6 episodes, you're doing 6 movies basically.
Right.
So
Right.
that's 6 movie money. You know what I'm
Yeah.
saying?
No,
And just time
it really
wise,
is.
you doing if you shoot a film for 8 days, you know, then to do a series, you're gonna be shooting 30 days.
Right.
So that's a lot of money, especially
Yeah.
five thousand a day. That's 150 grand. For a whole series, that's great, but it's still where you're gonna get the money from. And people want even
Right.
getting investors is tough because they want to know how I'm gonna recoup. So you really
Yeah.
don't want to ask for too much money
Right.
because then you gotta have an answer how you're gonna recoup.
Mm.
So that's why they're shooting movies for 30 grand, 40 grand. Because you can recoup a lot faster. You
Yeah.
know, but yeah, So I love series. I want to do one, but I gotta have the money, and then it's like, okay, so where's it go?
Right.
I don't have stars that is going. I know where it's gonna be. That's the tough part. Now you
Hmm.
spent this money on a series. Now nobody picked it up. Now where you gonna put it on YouTube and make the 150 grand back? No.
Right.
So you're in the trick bag. So
Yeah.
I feel like that was for a certain segment of filmmakers. It's not for
Right. It's not
everybody.
it's not for everybody.
Right.
Correct. Yeah.
Right.
And just from my perspective, what I gathered from it, what I'm thinking, what he was saying is, to shoot a series, you can get some more less well known actors for the price
Right.
of a list actor. Let's just say it's Will Smith or Tom Cruise or somebody, where he's
Hmm.
going to swallow up a huge chunk of the funds,
Right.
or the budget, to make said project. Whereas you can actually spread that around and probably still have money left over,
Right.
to do a continuation, and then if that series takes off, and those actors become fan favorites, then
Hmm.
at that point, you're not only making money, for and building a series or franchise for cheaper, but you're also, creating new stars in the process. And
Hmm.
I think he's
Hmm.
just using what he did
Right.
with Power,
Right.
as a prime example of that. Even though Amari Hardwick was already a well known actor, um, a lot of the other actors were
Right.
still on the rise, or might
Right.
have done a few spots here and there, but he managed to figure it out.
Yeah, but I feel like he struck lightning in a bottle.
Yeah,
That like
really, he
I don't
really
know if
did.
that would happen now.
Yeah, I don't know. The only, I
timing,
think the only other
everything is
time we've
perfect.
seen something like that, at least within our space, is probably
Right,
Empire, which he battled
right,
with. But you had Terrence Howard,
right. And then it was
and
also Fox. So you had Terrence Howard and
right,
Taraji, so
right,
he had bigger names, and you had
yeah,
Fox money,
right,
you know.
yeah,
So, but it's tough.
yeah. I can imagine. I can imagine. I've never created either, so I'm just the outside looking in, and I just thought it would be interesting, and it's just interesting question to ask because you're already in this space, and I've seen a lot of different jargon back and forth in the
Hmm.
comments section when I made that post. There's a lot of filmmakers who agree. There's a lot who disagree, and then there's
Right,
some people who are in the middle, so I find it interesting, because we kind of are in a space to where you could do one or the other or both, and be successful, but it's just a matter of how you go about it.
right. Yeah,
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 yeah.
yeah.
So let me ask, what's next for you, as a writer, director, producer?
Okay, so I'm developing two projects. I'm developing a bunch of projects, but two I'm writing the pilot for the TV series. I can't tell you what they're about, but
Okay.
one is
It's all
one is
right.
like not sci-fi, but it's a little more elevated content, like what's on Apple, stuff like that. Like it's
Oh wow.
some sci-fi elements. Another one is another TV series about a family, black family.
Uh-huh.
Um, in the real estate business. They got all these
Right.
families, some that they have these series, and it's like they're into drugs, they're into this, and
Right.
this family's in real estate, but their great great grandfather was a builder in Atlanta. Like they come from a long line of builders and architects and stuff. So just the history aspect is built into the story, which I liked.
Yeah, I like
So
that too.
I'm working on both of those pilot, and I'm working on part two, Dreamhouse, Raven's Revenge. I did a brief breakdown for the film. Depending on how the film does, it's kind of like, okay, so people want it. So sometimes I move with regard to what the industry is pushing and pulling
Right.
because that's just what it is. People want
Mhm.
to invest into certain things. People want to see certain things. The algorithm reacts to certain other things, but I'm trying to shoot something else, like solo micro film project like Dreamhouse before the year's out.
Mm.
I want to, but I don't know what it is, and I haven't written it yet. So,
Okay.
but I like the idea of doing something really small, doing a feature bare bones. I like that
Got it.
idea,
Got it.
but the story got to be bare bones.
Yeah. I do have one more question for you, and then we'll wrap it up. And this one, I didn't have this one written, but this is something that I've always found it interesting since it came about. But it didn't fare well when it was first introduced. But now I feel like we are in a space today to where it possibly could work. Um, and I'm not sure if you're familiar with a platform called Quibi. Quibi
Yes,
came
and
out.
and the fall of Quibi.
Yes, the fall of Quibi. Yes, so you're already familiar. Vertical format. It was behind a paywall. It wanted to be like a mobile Netflix, and it seemed like it was something promising. But then it was also during COVID and all of that,
Right,
um, and I think it just fell short. But there was a lot of heavy hitters that were involved in it. Kevin Hart was a part of it, and it fell short. But since then, I feel like that space could come back.
right.
And the reason why I say that is because Quibi was all about the 10-minute episode, doing like 10 episodes of 10 minutes
Hmm.
at a piece. And they were just quick enough for you if you're on a train or on a bus or
Right.
commute, you can get through an episode before your lunch break was over or whatever the case may be. But it was behind a paywall. Whereas today, you have Instagram allows you to upload up to 10 minutes. You have
Hmm.
YouTube is now allowing 3 minute shorts. TikTok allows you, it was 10 minutes, but I just got a message the other day saying up to 60 minutes TikTok video.
Wow.
So you could do a feature length on TikTok if you wanted to. And you know how when these platforms introduce something new, that particular thing that they are introducing, they allow it to take off because they want
Right,
people to use it.
right.
um, but but it's shareable. It's in the social media space, and I don't really feel like enough people are taking advantage of that.
Mm,
There is a group of filmmakers that I know out in LA I've talked to, and they created a series called the Moment series. And I don't want to go too much into what they're doing, but they were doing vertical format, but they're also playing around with other formats and whatnot. But they
mm,
were keeping it within the social media space in order to gain more attention and bring more awareness to what it is that they're doing. But
mm,
my question to you would be: would that ever be something that you would consider, even if it doesn't require you to make money, but it could bring more attention to a project, or it could be inclusive to a project? Maybe you do a feature length, and then you do maybe like a 3 episode mini series that's like a prequel to that feature or something to that effect. And these are just ideas I'm throwing out there.
yeah.
Nobody's ever presented me with anything. I just find it interesting, and I'm waiting for somebody to really take it and take off. So I know you're a filmmaker. You do excellent film work. You're the writer, director, and producer, so you could pull this off.
I
I'm just
actually thought
saying.
about doing that for Dreamhouse
See, yeah,
before
see, right.
because I see Dreamhouse could last forever because different women, different stories. So I thought about it for that
Hmm.
to promote the movie. Before
Right,
the movie came out,
exactly.
I was like, I was gonna do it to promote it. Life happens, things happen, and you don't have time. But it's something
Right.
that I wanted to do. But I
Yeah.
always like that. I like micro series. I like
Right.
short. I always like that kind of stuff. So I did a series called Soul Kings for Brick TV in New York.
Ah.
A digital series, 9 minutes each episode. We did 7 episodes.
Oh,
Yeah,
perfect. Yeah.
So that was like 2016 though.
But still, it's okay. But that's really before. I mean, the shorts have been around for a long time, but
Right,
um, yeah, I mean, in the digital age of things, and the shareable, where
right.
you can share it through social media. I feel like nobody's really attacked that space.
Yeah, not yet, not yet.
Yeah, but
You
it's
know.
coming, man. So
Yeah,
I
I
just
think,
wanted to throw.
but they also said it was coming for a while.
They did, but I think people shied away from it because of the fall of Quibi.
Right,
Um,
right.
and I think people began to become afraid of it. But I think the reason why I'm bringing it up today is because we failed at that time. We failed to look at how viral it could be if we chose to do it on a different platform.
Mm,
And at that time, of course, Instagram and TikTok and all, they weren't
right,
offering these time limits that they're offering
right,
today. So
right,
today it could work.
right.
Whereas, 4 years ago, it was something that they were testing and it failed, but it
Mm.
could very
I
well
mean,
come back.
you just got to think about something good for it.
Yeah.
You know, that'll get
Yeah.
people. It got to be something not dramaful, but it got to be something that that could go viral.
Yeah. It has to have a strong hook or be funny or,
Yeah,
yes, something to that
yeah.
effect. Hmm.
So okay, I'll think of something.
Yeah. Yeah. I'm not pushing you to do that,
No, I'm
but
just saying.
I just thought it would be something that would be cool to throw your way, if you
Yeah,
hadn't thought about it, and
yeah.
see if there's something.
You do 10. If you do 3 minute episodes, you could do 10 episodes at 30
Right.
minutes. So you really can do. You can have you can do a season really.
Yeah, and it's a proof of concept at the same time, where
Right.
that concept could still be sold as a feature length film, and you just have
True.
that. You can have that script already in the tuck. You can have it already ready. You're just using this as a tool to market yourself, and to get yourself out there.
Yeah.
And since Issa Rae on YouTube, I haven't seen anybody else do it.
Right. And they still trying to figure it out. The network studios, they still trying to figure it out. They don't know, but they're not going to do it. But they want to figure that out too. So if
I
somebody does,
Yeah, yeah. I mean, we all hold mobile devices. The mobile devices are getting bigger, smaller, foldable. So it's still a market that's untapped.
Right. Right.
Yeah,
Oddly enough, still
yeah,
untapped.
right.
You know.
But yeah, that's really all I had for you. And
Okay.
I want to say thank you so much for joining. But before we wrap this up, I'd like to give my guests a final word, where you could either give a piece of advice, words of encouragement, or a quote to live by. You could say all three, or you can choose
Mm.
one of the three. It's up to you.
I guess I'll give some advice. I don't know a quote. I mean, I know a bunch of quotes, but none that I remember. But I would just say, stay in the progress, in the process. Stay in the process.
Hmm.
Um, and it's about the. It's not about. Everybody says it's not about the destination. Is the journey, but I would say the journey is the destination.
Yes.
That's what I would say. The journey
Yeah.
is the destination because you're going to spend the majority of your life in the journey. You know what I'm saying?
Hmm.
So you want to enjoy the journey because 95% of your life is the journey. So the journey
Right.
is the destination. And I realized that in my career that this journey is I'm living in the destination every day,
Hmm.
as opposed to trying to get somewhere.
Yeah. You're right. And you said a quote without even realizing you said a quote. The journey is the destination, man. And that's
Yeah.
the truth, because once you get to the destination, if it's not the journey, then that's
Right.
the end, right?
Right. Right. Because you get to the destination, now you want another destination.
Right, right. So, yeah, the destination is in the journey, man. I love it. I love it.
Yeah. Yes, sir.
Well, Michael Boogie Pinkney, thank you so much, man. I truly, truly appreciate you coming on, giving me your time, your insight, your knowledge, a piece of your journey as well, and sharing it with all of us is truly appreciated. And I wish you nothing but more success in your future. I know you're going to be successful. I'm looking forward to Dreamhouse 2, 3, 4, 5. The mini series, all of that,
Yes, sir.
and all the other projects that you have coming. I wish you much success on that. And when those projects come around and they're ready to promote and market, please feel free to reach back. But we're gonna stay in touch and all of that, of course. Um,
Oh,
and yeah, I would be happy to have you back on to talk about more of what you got going on, man.
all right. Great. Thanks for having me.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir. Michael Boogie Pinkney, everybody.
Thank you.